We want to welcome everyone here. This is Cottonwood Heights on August 11th, 2026, and this is our Truth in Taxation business meeting. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have asked our Economic and Planning Director, Jim Spung, to lead us.
Please stand and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the sole purpose of this meeting is to hear from you, and I have this to read before we hear from you. The dollar amount of budget property tax revenue that would be generated each year by the proposed property tax is $3.5 million. On a $800,000 residence, which is the average value of a residence in the city, the increase would be 249.18 cents a year. On an $850,000 business, the average value of a business in the city, the increase would be $435.05 a year. The purpose for the increase in the intended uses of the property tax revenue remain consistent with a purpose statement read on May 5th, 2026, as part of the tentative budget and detailed in a separate document entitled the Property Tax Impact Schedule. The Property Tax Impact Schedule has been made publicly available at each meeting where the proposed budget was discussed in May and June, and has been continuously available on the Cottonwood Heights website since May 5th of 2026. The city is committed to maintaining a high quality of life for residents through reliable public services, sound infrastructure, and responsible financial management. The proposed property tax increase is being considered to ensure the long-term financial stability of the city and to sustain essential services that our community relies upon every day. A critical component of maintaining high-quality municipal services is the city's ability to retain experienced and well-trained staff. This is especially important in public safety roles, such as the city's police department, where institutional knowledge, training, and continuity directly impact the safety and well-being of the community. Without remaining competitive for these high-demand positions, the city risks losing skilled employees to other jurisdictions, resulting in increased turnover, higher training costs, and potential disruptions in service levels. Investing in competitive compensation and benefits ensures stability within the workforce, preserves the city's investment in employee training, and supports the consistent delivery of essential services to residents. In the 21 years since the city's incorporation, the city has raised its property tax rate above the certified rate only once in 2018. That increase only balanced the 2018-19 budget and did not provide planning for any cost increases in future years. For the past several years, the city has balanced its budget by utilizing reserve fund, also known as the Rainy Day Fund, to cover ongoing operational costs. In recent years, the city benefited from unique and temporary financial conditions. Federal recovery funds and 2 years of unusually strong sales tax revenues during and following the COVID-19 pandemic helped offset rising costs. A large portion of the reserve funding came from just over $6 million in federal pandemic recovery funds. While this approach allowed the city to avoid further property increases from 2018 until now, it is not a sustainable long-term strategy. Continuing to rely on reserves for recurring expenses creates structural imbalances that, if left unaddressed, would jeopardize the city's financial health. Since the 2018 property tax increase, the cost of providing municipal services has risen significantly. Inflation has increased the price of goods, services, and labor. Additionally, advancements in technology while improving efficiency and service delivery have introduced new costs, including those associated with maintaining secure systems and protecting sensitive information. These necessary investments ensure that the city can operate effectively and securely in an increasingly digital environment. In the fall of 2024, voters approved a general obligation bond to fund the development of the town center project. At that time, the city projected that no additional tax increase would be needed for approximately 5 years. However, unforeseen complications, including the existence of 2 long-term leases, the need to acquire additional property for the project, and other project-related challenges, have delayed the timeline for this development. While the town center is expected to provide long-term economic benefits and help offset future inflationary pressures once completed, those benefits have not yet been realized. The current City Council continues to actively evaluate all options to ensure that the town center project delivers maximum value to the community. At the same time, the city must address immediate financial realities. Without the proposed tax increase, the city would be required to make significant reductions to core services, such as public safety, infrastructure maintenance, and community programs. The proposed increase is intended to stabilize the city's finances, reduce reliance on reserves, and preserve the level of service that residents expect and deserve. The City Council does not take this decision lightly and remains committed to transparency, fiscal responsibility, and the long-term well-being of the city. Specifically, the additional funds are proposed to be appropriated in the final budget as follows and as outlined on the property tax impact statement. General government, $1,062,960. Public safety, $1,778,576. Public works, $498,939. Community and economic development, $159,525 for a total of $3.5 million. The county auditor compiled a list of information on all truth and taxation hearings being held by fiscal year entities in Salt Lake County in 2006. Copies of the list are on the back table for anyone who wants a copy, and the list has been available and can be viewed on the city's website since July 14th, 2026. A list of hearings will remain on the city's website until our tax rate is certified later this month. We will now receive public comments on the proposed property tax increase. For those participating electronically, please be on mute when you are not making public comments. We will need to take comments in an orderly manner. We will advise a participant when it is the participant's turn to speak. We ask that you give your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I believe there were some instructions here. Normally, we would just remind people that this is a public hearing and that we ask us to speak with respect and civility while we're here. And those public comments are limited in all of our meetings to 3 minutes, and that will be our goal today as well. So what we'll do is take about 10 comments in person, and then we'll go to the online. When this meeting started, there were only about 3 online, so we'll do all the online after about 10 in person. And then if you want to speak, you need to fill out a card on the back table and hand it to our staff over here so that I will call on you to speak if you want to speak. And you do not have to speak. The card has a yes or a no, so you can circle if you want to speak or not. And the first person that I have is my friend Marshall Shelton.
Thank you. My name's Marshall Shelton. I reside at 1688 East Park Ridge Drive. Cottonwood Heights claims to need more money to keep up with growth. Cottonwood Heights is not growing. It's actually getting smaller. The population is down about 3% since 2018. Calls for police service are down by 11%. Calls for fire and medical are down by 5%. City officials claim that revenues have not kept up with inflation. City revenues have more than kept up with inflation. Since the 2018 fiscal year, the city received a $6 million COVID bonus from the federal government. On top of that, city revenues grew by 49%. Inflation grew by 29%. The personal income of Cottonwood Heights residents grew by 16%. But city employee salaries were up by 63% and their benefits were up by 48%. Over the past 10 years, there have been at least 7 actions taken by the city to raise additional revenue by exacting new taxes and fees from residents. Several of those taxes increases happened in ways that were difficult for the average resident to discover. New city taxes came in utility bills, phone bills, and at the gas pump. During the city's effort to get residents to support an additional property tax, council members committed that no additional tax increase would be needed for approximately 5 years if the voters authorized the issuance of bonds for the town center project. Claiming unforeseen complications, the city now projects a shortfall from the previous projections of $960,000 in 2027. But they say they need more than $5 million in new dollars in 2027 to sustain essential services that our community relies upon every day. City officials now seem to be saying that they lied to us when they told us that the tax increase being proposed in 2024 was enough for 5 years. City council members are now saying that the city was in a bad financial condition at that time that they made those insurances. The city claims that comparable cities have increased taxes considerably. The 2025 tax rate for most of the cities referenced in this claim are below the Cottonwood Heights 2025 tax rate. With the addition of this new tax, Cottonwood Heights will have a higher property tax rate than nearly every one of these cities referenced. Councilmember Highland has repeatedly explained that residents currently pay an average of $67 per month for all city services, which she says is an incredible value. If you divide the total city revenues by the total number of residents, you will discover that the full burden on residents is $222 per month, not $67. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will refrain from clapping. In our previous meetings, we do not clap in our meetings. We're here to listen. So now the next person is Mike Shelton. Thank you.
Thank you. If you divide the total city revenues by the total number of residents, you will discover that the full burden on residents is $222 per month, not $67. Most of the residents from our neighboring cities pay considerably less in property taxes. City-related property taxes are nearly twice as expensive in Cottonwood Heights as they are in Sandy. Holiday residents will pay 35% less than Cottonwood Heights residents. This year, City Council members selected a group of qualified residents as representatives in this year's budget process. At the end of the work of the Citizens Budget Committee, members completed a survey. 6 of 7 members agreed that the city should make the required expenditure reductions and reduce employees. 4 of 7 members agreed that the city should not recommend any property tax increase. 6 of 7 members agreed that if the city did a tax increase, it should be less than 10%. The problem is not one of insufficient revenues. The problem is one of rapidly accelerating city expenditures. Over the past 7 years, expenditures have grown at a rate of over 70%, more than double the rate of inflation over the same period. General expenses have grown by an average of $2.4 million each year. The city is good at highlighting savings, but not so good at detailing new costs. In wake of all these budget challenges, the city created a new position for an assistant city manager. That addition alone must have added around $300,000 per year to the city manager budget. City leaders have no detailed financial plan for the future. This is a glaring issue when the city is demanding another significant tax increase. Elected officials claim that this tax increase will be enough for 2 years. That claim is difficult to reconcile with the numbers provided by the staff. The city is once again in no position to make claims 2 years out when they don't even have a 2-year plan. City leaders have repeatedly said, if you want us to cut the budget, tell us what you would cut. A long list of cuts have been proposed by a diverse group of qualified residents that are more than enough to balance the budget without a tax increase. The position of city leaders seems to be that there would be more resident opposition to cuts than there would be to another significant tax increase. That has not been my experience, but I guess that remains to be seen.
Thank you. Next, we have Darren Croft.
Good evening. I'm Darren Croft, 1692 East, 6765 South, a resident of Cottonwood Heights, and a candidate for House District 41. Thank you to the council and staff for your work on our city's finances. Over the past several weeks, residents have asked me about this proposed tax increase, prompting me to look into it more closely. Between 2018 and 2024, total city revenues grew 49%, well above inflation. Yet city spending grew 70% over that same period. The Citizen Budget Committee found this spending growth unsustainable and recommended spending cuts and a tax increase below 10%. Council and staff have warned of drastic service cuts without an increase, but we don't have to choose between cutting core services and accepting a 43% tax hike. I urge the council to prioritize essential services and eliminate discretionary items like expensive AV upgrades and staff expansion. Over the coming year, the Citizen Budget Committee's structural proposals must be given serious consideration, and generating revenue from the Town Center project must be a priority for all council and staff. I urge the council to focus on city residents and vote for at most a 25% tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, that we have Heather Anderson.
Good evening. My name is Heather Anderson. I'm in District 1. Clearly was not planning on this meeting tonight, but I'm here just the same. So I understand that there's some budgetary issues. However, 43% basically seems extreme. I know we are all pinching pennies, and I don't think that the city should be not pinching some pennies too. I think most people could consider a reasonable increase. 43%, however, is not a reasonable increase. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next is Becky Apgood to speak or not? Some have not circled, so I'm just going to ask when there's no circle.
I'm Becky Apgood. I live at 2858 Palma Way. I've been a resident of Cottonwood Heights for 30 years. I agree with everything that has already been said so far at this point, so I'm not going to reiterate all of that. I think the emphasis should be on fire and police essential services for our city, and I think that we can do better as far as managing our other costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila Wall?
So sorry, I didn't circle. I am Sheila Wall. I live at 2646 East, 6710 South in District 3. Everything that everyone has said, I fully agree with so far. My biggest issue is that we need to consider those with fixed incomes. You know, I am approaching the retired status, and fixed incomes, this raising of 43% is just not acceptable. I think everyone here would say there probably needs to be some increase, but it needs to be way, way lower than that. I don't even agree with the 25%. Somewhere between the 10 and 15, it would be all that I would say that we can afford. And, if we want young families to move into this area, they have to be able to afford to live here. And, we are one of the highest cities. We pay more than most of the cities surrounding us. And I just think that needs to be considered as you make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brenda Rhodes.
Hi, I'm Brenda Rhodes, and I'm on 6678 Cristobal Street. And I'm just going to speak as a layman here because I didn't have it all ready and prepared for you. But I agree that 42.7% increase is outrageous. I don't know anywhere in the country that has had that increase. If you could show me, I'd really like to see it. That is absolutely asking way too much. We have younger children that live in Cottonwood Heights. And I will tell you, with children, they have children that they're trying to raise that they're just dumbfounded at how much you are actually trying to propose here. And I just think that you need to reconsider that and have something a lot more reasonable, like what was presented. I mean, a reasonable amount would be like 10, 12, 15%, in my opinion. That's what most people will do. And so there you go.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Eric Cron.
Hello, Council. My name is Eric Kran, and I want to remind everybody that this process is called Truth and Taxation. And at the core of everything is trust. We trust our representatives to actually be accountable and safeguard the well-being of the community as a whole. And therefore, if you need the money, we will give it. Now, I am the lone person out of that Budget Citizens Committee that actually supported conditionally significant and pretty much everything that the head of departments requested as essential money that they needed, under the condition that the city council acknowledge past errors of judgment and probably withholding the truth. I do not agree. I do not have a different word that says this different, the opposite of truth, other than lying. In 2024, the city council left, and to that respect also the city manager and the finance director signed off on a referendum that left blank the statement of opposition to the referendum. That would have been the perfect space to actually put a statement saying that we are spending money on our money from the rainy fund to cover those expenses. And yet nothing was said. Nothing. Actually, the opposite. Promises about 5 years in the future, you're going to increase taxes. That is a lie. But if that was truth, and you were really intending to do that, then what you're saying today is the lie. And I cannot stand over here in a process called truth and taxation and take your word as truth and be supportive of a increase in taxes on people in this community. We are owed some truth today if you want our money tomorrow. That's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Christine McLallen. Karen Roylance.
I'm short. I'm Karen Roylance, 1932 East Meadow Drive. And thanks all for coming, and the participation today in the crowd is really impressive. I just want to thank you for your service, for being a retired state employee after 30 years. I understand what government is about. I understand the low wages that we worked for. Working at this state, we never got more than a 1.5% cost of living increase for 20 years. We got one at 3.5% one time. I personally worked 3 jobs to support my family as a single mom. And so working for the state was an honor. It was a sacrifice, but I also had to meet the needs of my family, and I did that in other ways. And so that's where I think as an official and as a government elected servant, basically a public servant, we are required and kind of know that we're giving up a lot of our time and effort for less wages. And so the benefits are good insurance and retirement, things like that, which I know are all going away. So the other thing I wanted to mention was the taxed, the fixed income on some of us are elderly. I can't retire. I'm still working because I can't retire. I also live in a home that was built in 1956. The foundation is cracking. I have a $20,000 bill coming up. My roof is going. I have a $22,000 bill coming up. And I have a lot of other repairs in the home that need to be done. And so on a fixed income, working part-time and trying to make that with this increase of only $20 a month or 42% is really hitting it hard. So this year I plan on appealing last year's tax increase because I can't afford to do it all. It's like I may have to take out a loan just to be able to pay my taxes this year, right? And so it's getting to the point where it's increasing and increasing. So what I would like to see is like what happened to the furloughing, or could we do a furloughing and just shut down the government for a few days? We did that at the state a few times to help the rainy day fund build back up. We also did the 410s. It was a horrible disaster. It ended up costing a lot more money in overtime. So I personally would like to see the cost, if that's been beneficial, or you guys earning more money being here tonight because it's after your 410 and you're off on Friday, or you're working too much, and so those kinds of things. Personally, I love the police and I love the fire department. I think they should make more money, and I don't want to lose any of that at all, but some of the non-essential. And then I'd like to see more about what happened to the Hillside Plaza. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Now we will go online. It looks like we have 4 people, and we'll start with Benjamin Reese.
And really quickly, if anyone else online would like to speak, please raise your hand on Zoom.
Hi, can you hear me?
We're ready for you, Benjamin.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say Benjamin Reese here, resident Pamela Drive. And yeah, just really appreciate what Ms. Royland said, and appreciate what everyone here is doing at City Council. I know it's probably not easy, and a lot of people here inherited the decisions of a lot of staffers, former. So anyway, I just wanted to say credit to the city for taking responsibility, bringing this before the public, putting all the data out there. I personally benefited from reading through the graphs, some of the videos posted, and just really appreciate that proactive approach to cutting staff 8.5% in 5 months, 94 people to 86. Yeah, I know times are tight and people really appreciate that. I do too. And so I think it could be true. We need fiscal responsibility. I also think that it could also be true that if we cut hard, the gap could still be there, and deferring capital, maybe just moving the bill to a year we have not budgeted for yet. So I just wanted to say, I currently support the tax increase. I don't pretend to be a professional to understand the right rate or all the data behind it or where our city sits in the overall multi-year outlook. But I just wanted to serve as a voice to say that I really do support the increase, and specifically in regards to Hillside Plaza, I think sacrifices need to be made to provide built city walkable amenities that can provide long-term multi-generational tax, economic, and cultural benefits to our city to, bring us to that world-class status that we acclaim or, you know, would like to live in with the folks like, you know, Post Malone or whatever it may be. I think we're, you know, we really just have some of those basic economic development zone work that we have promised ourselves that I just personally would love to see us push through and have determination there. I know, you know, this, you know, may not be easy. There may not be a straight line to getting there. And I'd love to just see how we could, you know, continue to support people at City Council to see how we can get there together. So again, just appreciate everyone here and also sort of the dissenting opinions as well. I think there's a lot of great opinions there too. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? We see you, but if you raise your hand, we'll know that you want to speak. Okay, if there's anyone here in the room that would like to speak, you need to come fill out a card. I've got a few more, so we'll be hearing more. Robert, and since I don't see any online with a hand raised right now, we'll go to Robert T. Smith.
Hello, I live at 1977 East Regal Stream Cove. I've been in Cottonwood Heights since its founding. We moved here 25 years ago. Mayor Binion, I recall you coming to our home when you were campaigning for mayor. And your most important, that I recall, desire was that there be affordable housing for people here in Cottonwood Heights. This tax increase goes against what you said. You expressed a desire for young people, young families to be able to move here, and this is not going to help that. The notion of a 43% tax increase is offensive to most people, and I think the city council should think about that and think about ways that they can cut services, non-essential services, so that we can keep our budget in line. I recognize that as a city council, you want to have a budget that balances, but you've had a group of citizens that have given you recommendations that would be much less than what you're proposing. And I would encourage you to give heed to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if you're online and want to speak, please raise your hand or just speak up. If not, we'll go to Pam Gurrell.
I'm Pam Gurrell at 2865 East Denmark Drive. I support the comments in which individuals have identified that the tax increase is too much. In my mind, it's egregious. It truly is. It's absurd. I would think that the city council would be very embarrassed to share this with others because of how much of an outlier Cottonwood Heights is. I suspect that you were given certain things. You didn't create it, but you were given certain things, and now you're having to deal with it. I'm a firm believer in reducing discretionary spending, such as Butlerville days. I think we spend a lot of money on that. And yes, it's good for the community. It's good to come together. But people can't afford this. When we say we have young families, some of those young families are living in the basements of their parents' homes. I suspect any one of you could identify on your street where there's multiple generations living in one home. I live on a nice street, and this is true of several houses on my home. My tax bill under the proposed tax goes up $900,000. That's too much. That's too much. Thank you.
Okay. I believe I have a comment that I think is not to be speaking, and then I have Dan Kovac to speak. If there's anyone else, did you want to speak, Ken? It's written, Ken. Did you want to? Okay, so Ken and then Dan. No, there's not. We're here to listen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I too believe that this is way too much money. I find it ironic that we just went through the renewable energy thing where we had a choice, and this we have no choice other than you guys can listen to us today. The thing is that we are in a bad economy, and with businesses, when businesses hit the ropes, we cut way back. We freeze salaries. Last time this was increased a few years ago, we had built in 3% increase on salaries. And immediately after the tax increase went into effect, the police chief demanded a 13% increase, and the city manager at the time gave it to him. That doesn't happen in real world. Real world, we basically cut back free salaries, let people go. And so I support reducing a few police officers. I support basically getting rid of the two-year lease trucks and putting more fuel efficient vehicles in place. I support maybe one person off the firefighters, or maybe two like you guys presented. Projects like the AV in the other room need to go on hold. You need to look at every department and cut back. That's the bottom line. If you put a flash poll out, the flash poll would say the majority of residents in this town would say 40-something% is too much. Now, what's reasonable? Reasonable would be, okay, we haven't had an increase for, 7 years, I think? So 7 times maybe a couple percent a year. That would be a reasonable target, I think, to get to, the mid-teens. You don't just come in and say, oh, we want the world for the next few years to solve the problems. The real problems are Hillside Plaza, the building that's gone on, and I even hear that there's possibility of a police shooting range. Even if that was gifted to the city, that shooting range would cost money to maintain. Quit building and start maintaining and give us a reasonable price. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan Kovac.
I'm here for the entertainment portion of the meeting. So Mayor Benyon, you're new here. I think all of the other council people are incumbents. So I'm giving you a hall pass and thank you for bringing some information to light. If we're $3,500,000 in the red, that didn't happen just overnight. So the people that were here supposedly manning what was going on are either a mixture of asleep, uncaring, incompetent, or dishonest, or a mixture. And so if this is supposed to be a truth in taxation, lovely truth and reconciliation type meeting, we need to hear more about that. We are here, we've got a deficit, trying to get it all healed up right now with a giant tax increase, which may be a permanent tax increase. Do we need a permanent tax increase? How long do we need this tax increase before we've retired this 3.5 million? What I would like to see is, I'd like to see a year over year layout of our expenditures against what we brought in, and find out how long we've been running in the red before we finally got honest and saw what was going on. Okay? Because if we don't do that, Why should anybody in this room or in the city trust that this existing set of people is going to be competent enough to hold to a budget?
Thank you. We have another card. Again, no, please, we don't, in our past meetings, we've asked people not to clap. We have Zachary Ashby to speak. And that's the final card I have, and I don't see any hands online, so we'll be done with public comment unless anyone else fills out a card or raises their hand online.
I'm Zachary Ashby. I'm here as a scout primarily for my communications merit badge required for Eagle Scout, but also felt it appropriate to say that I think that it is necessary to not only decrease unnecessary budgets, but also increase our income by means of, for example, the town center. Town center is also needed and I think should be seriously considered because we need a cultural hub besides just some random parking lot off, because all we have for the most part is our recreation center, which is good, but also like our shopping centers those are separated from, I feel like, our community. You don't go to the shopping centers. 'Cause sorry. What I'm trying to say is that Cottonwood Heights needs a place where people want to be in Cottonwood Heights and not just you happen to find a McDonald's in Cottonwood Heights. We need a place where our community feel united, in a place where we're able to make the income for that city desperately needs. We cannot increase taxes and not have anything to show for it. We need to, if there's any tax increase, I would hope that that money would go towards public needs that are not just maintaining benches in the park, but longer sustainable places that make people want to go there, where like multi-use. And because I mean the parks are nice, they genuinely are, but not everyone is there. You don't need to go to the park to do your usual casual shopping or to go to work. If we build the town center, then it would create a place for people to gather, to do their shopping, to work, to live, and for the city to be able to make an income so that we don't have problems like this in the future where we have to increase our property taxes by a great amount. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two more cards, and again, anyone here or online is welcome to speak. So first we have Felix Salazar.
Thank you for taking my question. I've grown up in this community for 50 years, have seen it kind of grow from a little town to what it is now. Remembering a lot of the shops, a lot of the homes, a lot of the narrow roadways. So I grew up here with my brother. And I guess the question that comes to me, and it makes me emotional, and I think it's out of frustration. I don't want to say it's out of anger, it's out of frustration, is that how much more do people have to pull out of their pocket? How much more do I have to do when things get tough for me, when things got tough for my family, my dad was from New Mexico, northern New Mexico, who grew up during the Depression. My mom was from another country, from Mexico. She grew up poor on dirt floors. When things got tough, they figured it out. Some of them went without. A lot of times they went without. I don't want to have to move because I can't afford to live here. I don't think many of us want to move because we can't afford to live here. When things get tough for me, I'm turning off my Comcast. I'm getting a different phone plan. I do it. I don't want to work a second or third job to be able to pay Cottonwood Heights taxes to somebody that's going to be bringing in $75,000, $80,000 a year, working whatever amount of hours they're going to work. It is unfair. We can't pay anymore. And I guess that's the question, is to ask yourselves, how much can we lay into our people here to pull out of their pocket if they don't have it? What do you want them to do? And if they say, well, you know what, I can't pay it, then they're penalized for not paying it. But then they're the ones that go without. So I guess I would ask you guys to think about that. What do you want us to do when we say we can't? We just don't have it anymore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We keep getting more cards and we welcome that. We want people to speak if they're online or in the room. So next we have Jennifer Jensen.
Hello. We just had a tax increase recently with this town center bond. And, you know, it didn't pass by a wide margin. It was very short. Private development is not your role. Your role is to maintain public infrastructure and the roads and everything else. The roads here are terrible. Driving down Highland Drive, I mean, it's ridiculous. Even Fort Union, I mean, for days the cones have been lined up on Fort Union and there's been no construction. Lanes turned down, you know, it takes forever just for the minimal projects to be complete. That's what your focus needs to be on. You need to sell that land. Yes, it's going to be multifamily or whatever, but it's not the worst shopping center in Cottonwood Heights is under your ownership. You know, it looks terrible and you can't even maintain what you've got. So you need to focus on the priorities here. It's unacceptable. It really is.
Thank you. Next we have Brett Besser. And if you want to speak, bring your card to our staff so that they'll know that you want to speak. Otherwise, after Brett, if I don't have more cards, we'll stop. So, and you can fill out a card and just write on it, and then we'll have the written comments. So we take comments always.
Does that mean I can have extra time since I'm the last one?
3 minutes.
Okay. I have, these are actually more questions, but I guess maybe you can answer them on the website or something. I keep hearing that we didn't get the result we wanted out of Hillside Plaza, or at least it's delayed. When that finally does come through, are we looking at taking that windfall and reducing taxes? Or are we just going to hold on to that in lieu of taxes in the future? Or how's that going to be used? And then I think something that needs to be looked at for the people, I feel for people who are having a property tax increase, but the reality is our property taxes are not going up 40%. I checked mine. The small portion in there that's Cottonwood Heights is going up 40%, but your overall taxes are going up. Mine were going up 9.1%. So for the people who said, you know, I could live with 10%, you know, you're already there. So I think we just need to be realistic about what this is really coming down to and forget some of the hyperbole. So thank you.
Thank you. I have a card for Keith Mead.
My name's Keith Mead. I live at 8433 South Lantern Hill Court. I'm just looking at the proposed property tax impact schedule and the items that you say you would have to not go forward with if you don't get your tax increase. A lot of those items to me look to be things that could be spread out over a number of years and look to me almost like they're one-time expenditures. And I would like to see each department somehow budget those items so you can get a smaller increase that would carry forward and let people get the additional training or whatever, maybe not this year, but next year or the year after. I don't think it has to all happen at once. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, the last card I have now is Kim Steenblick. So if anyone else would like to speak, this will be our last speaker unless we get more cards or someone online speaks up or raises a hand.
I would like to speak against the property tax increase. I realize that we do need a tax increase. I think 47% is a huge amount and a huge burden on the taxpayers. When I came to the open house for the general plan, coming forward, it seemed like there were a lot of projects and stuff that maybe don't need to be done right now and can be put off. I think we need to focus on what we've already set out to do. First is Hillside. It's sitting vacant, and I understand there are some issues with Walgreens and leases and stuff like that, but we've already agreed to a bond to have that developed, and it's frustrating to see that just sitting vacant and not moving forward. I also feel like I know that there's a line in there to hire someone to help the city manager for that has more expertise, and that's a huge cost to hire someone else to have the expertise to and where I understand it a little bit, there are ways that we can be smart about what we're doing and not do such a huge increase. It's a huge burden to the taxpayers. I mean, I saw our property bill and I just about, I mean, it went up quite a bit. And granted, that all of that is Cottonwood Heights City line, but it's a burden across the board with everything and everyone. And it's just, I am against that huge of an increase. I think we need to think of, there are people who it's not a burden to, but there are a lot of people that big of an increase would be a huge burden to them. So I think you need to be a little bit cautious of how big of an increase you're looking at.
Thank you. Okay, if I don't see any other cards or hands, sounds like we have heard from everyone here who wants to speak. And now we'll take some time for our council to discuss this. So I welcome any of our council that want to talk.
Mayor, can you close the?
Yes. Okay, I need a motion to close this portion.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we're into time to discuss what we have just heard and the property tax proposed increase.
Mayor, yeah, how do you want to do it? In order? Do you want to?
You want to start?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Councilman Matt Holton. It's a pleasure to meet a lot of you, some new faces. As I always tell people, the council it's neighborhood government. And I'm happy that we're seeing our neighbors here. We're all neighbors and we're all taking turns to do this job. And we've got some people in the audience that have done it before. And so it's great to hear all your feedback. I'm going to take you on a little journey. This is not prepared. Felix, that guy, totally you're pulling at my heartstrings. I'm kind of mad at you, Felix. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to go. It reminded me of me growing up, and it reminded me of my mom when she immigrated here. She joined the National Guard and she did graveyard shifts as a mail sorter at the post office, and she was always gone because things were tight. And, you know, as I go out there throughout the district, I meet people where things are tight. Everyone has a different experience and a different journey and a different measure of what they can handle. So I don't think there's one answer or one size that fits everybody, that's for sure. I may look young. I apologize to my colleagues here. I feel like when it comes to taxes, I'm like an old curmudgeon. And you know, I appreciate their patience with me. I will tell you, I think everyone up here on this council, I think however they act or whatever their thoughts are, I do think that they have the best interests of the city and the residents in mind, even though we might disagree on some things. I really do believe that. When we talk about Hillside, that was a past commitment that, you know, I think some communicated stronger than others about the fact that there wouldn't be an increase for 5 years. And, you know, we're here. And so in my opinion, you know, shame on us for being in this position where we've got to raise taxes. I do think that there needs to be an increase. I don't think that there's a debate on that. I truly do believe that there has to be an increase. What I've communicated to my colleagues here is that I would be in favor of another number. I'd be in favor of maybe half, and I know that I might be in the minority on that, but I do think there are some things that we can change in this city to improve our processes, improve how we interact with these committees, how we are transparent with where the money's going and how it's being spent. I do think that there are improvements that can be made there, and I've communicated to my colleagues that I'd be in favor of passing something that would get us through this next year to try to make those improvements, to come back and hopefully in a year from now, if we talk to you all, we're looking back and saying we really made some significant changes to make sure that we're doing things right. So I appreciate your feedback. We've had very in-depth conversations, I think, more than any other issue that we've addressed in the city. We've spent more time on this and have had conversations as colleagues. And so I appreciate the feedback from the community. And I'll pass it off to one of my colleagues.
Thank you. I just really want to thank everybody for being here. I never thought that I'd be in this position of having to consider a tax increase. We did have $6 million to be able to put into our general fund. And what I've realized in budgeting, because I've done budgeting, private budgeting for a long time, public budgeting is very different. It's fund balances. And so that rainy day fund was propped up by COVID funds. And if anything, we have led you to believe that we can continue to offer the services at the same rate that you've received them before, but we have run deficits for 4 years. And whether you agree with that or not, it was responsible actually to not have that rainy day fund be such a high number. And so when you draw it down right now, we're talking about maybe $4 million, which is 15%, which is about the lowest operational level we should allow it to be. I was called out specifically about how we're not actually getting services for $67 a month. That was actually only the property tax portion. And then you called out a number of $202 per resident. I would question that, and I would question it because there are visitors who come to our city. And you know what we're not taking advantage of? Visitors coming to our city to help alleviate some property tax and general tax burdens on our community. And what I see in this city right now is a lot of stress. Our infrastructure is 50 to 60 years old. There are a lot of things that if we kick the can down the road too much further, we're going to pay even more. And that's one of my concerns. My other concern is that we are transforming, and whether we like it or not, the pandemic and the icon past changed us. I don't like it. I don't like that we have this much pressure, but I also know that change can manage us, or we can manage change. And we did reorg a little bit. When you're talking about adding an assistant city manager, the reason for that is I don't want developers running us over. I want to have the expertise in this city to be able to protect you as taxpayers and as residents so that we maintain this mountain suburban lifestyle that we love. And that is one of the reasons that I have looked very critically at the budget and where we are and what we need to do. I will acknowledge too, I wasn't a city council member when the town center was purchased. And in hindsight, that probably should have never been purchased without clear title. But we are at this point where we have to plow through this. And the reason to bring the town center online is not to subsidize private developers. It's to actually help us as taxpayers so that that generates a lot of revenue. And if it does, I'll do a property tax decrease, 100%. We are just in an impaired situation right now because of, especially the Walgreens, that was a public company when we purchased the town center, and now it's a private company, and they have reduced their staff by 70%. And we're struggling to try to clear that lease. But I also don't appreciate being called dishonest or incompetent when we are just trying to do the best we can with what's in front of us. Cottonwood Heights is a bedroom community, and a bedroom community pays higher property tax. And I want to reverse that. We need commercial and retail development, redevelopment, so that your taxes go down. And if we don't own up to that, my fear is that taxes will keep going up and up and up. So I have heard you tonight loud and clear. I will say I think we've reached a break point. Our infrastructure costs are 25 to 33% higher. We just learned that to rebuild Highland Drive, instead of being a projected cost of 1.9 million, is now 2.9 million because we kicked the can down the road. I don't know if we should keep doing that. I've spent countless hours understanding our current and past budgets, and my takeaway is that the community wants a level of service that can no longer be purchased at yesterday's prices. I'm also very empathetic to how much inflation is affecting all of us. A huge national deficit that's keeping interest rates very high, consolidation in home services because private equity is purchasing home services, like think of Yes and Any Hour Services. Instead of an HVAC costing you $6,000, it costs $20,000 now. Instead of a roof costing $10,000, it's $25,000. I wish I could do something about that, but I hear you, I get it. So I just want to say a couple more things. Before my term in office, I stood before the council and made a few reasonable pleas, which to my surprise changed the minds of a few council members. I appeal to this council to take some time tonight and really counsel with each other. I'm undecided at this moment because I think we're choosing between two goods, which is the hardest choices. Do we continue to offer the level of service that you want, but increase taxes? Or do we, $2.7 million of cuts, where would that come from? That would really actually hurt us. It's not Butlerville days. That only cost $200,000. We already cut all of that. It would be public safety and public works and real cuts that you and I would feel. We can move forward with the 42% to meet the city's needs, along with some very important shoulds. Any citizen can review that on our city's truth and taxation, or we can approve a lower 25% increase. There are two very respected voices who have caused me to pause and reconsider the 42%. They urge us to consider the minimum increase we can live with this year while working on the town center to increase revenues. And I can see some wisdom in putting pressure on the city's budget to move as quickly as possible on the town center. So I have an alternative that would only be 25% property tax increase that I have offered previously to my council colleagues. It is doable. I don't see any reasonable path to any number lower than 25%, which would be about $13 a month instead of $20. And I do pause a little bit and go, $7 a month. What should we do with that? And that also might mean if we do 25% this year, we'd have to do 20% next year. And if there's any really valid feedback that I've heard from some residents is, why didn't you do this more slowly so that we could incorporate it into our budget instead of the 42% gut punch? And I hear you. I think that going forward, this is what Murray did. They did like a 45% increase, and then they did smaller 6 or 7% increases each year. The last thing I'll say is we really have stretched your taxpayer dollars as far as it can go. We have only increased, the city, the city has only increased 13% in 21 years compared to Draper, who's done 82%, Holiday at 62%, Murray at 68%, Midville at 172%. Holiday's lower because they have 2 parks. We have 12. They're also, I think we're subsidizing them with fire station calls. I've looked at the numbers. So there's always reasons why things are different than you might see. So that's my plea tonight with the council, that we really consider the number, but it's going to be between 25 and 42%. Otherwise, we will let you down with what we have to cut.
Next, we have Councilmember Newell. I'll just remind everyone on our comment cards, it says, please respect all opinions and don't applaud, cheer, or make background remarks. Okay, thank you.
I want to mirror what my colleagues that have spoken so far have stated. One of the things that we consider is the lives and lifestyles of all of our residents. We're trying to do the best we can here. One of my biggest concerns is cutting services. I want our roads to be safe. I want our security of our families to be safe. I want to make sure that our firefighters are available and they can respond quickly to our residents. I would hate to see our city and the key projects and the key things that we do for our residents to become dilapidated. It is just something that is really curious to me that we are not being able to, or as a whole, to see the outcomes. I'd like to have everybody take a look at the cuts that have been made so far and the burden that it puts on our current staff in doing 1 or 2 jobs a person to try to be able to make up for the cuts that we have made. And we constantly look for other opportunities to save money here. And one of the things that I'm really concerned about is that if we don't do what we need to do, and I'm not saying it's got to be 42%, we actually work for you, so we're going to listen to you. We're going to take into consideration your concerns. But I don't want to see us get into a position to where we have to look at coming back to you again and saying that didn't work. We need to do something more. We need to do it again in a manner that's not conducive to us being able to provide the services that we need to provide to the city. None of us up here are trying to make $1 million. I heard a lot of comments about the comparison for other municipalities. Other municipalities have a huge amount of economic development that actually helps subsidize what they're doing. And that allows them to keep their taxes at a reasonable rate for the most part. There were times when there were cities like South Salt Lake that had to raise their taxes 110% years ago because they fell behind. We don't want to fall behind again. We want to be responsible and do the right things for the long term and to be able to make sure that the things that we do are conducive to us having a safe environment for us to live in and to thrive in. The projects that we're working on right now, sometimes someone mentioned the cones on the street and everything else. We have to work through the budgets to make sure that we can keep start these projects and keep these projects going. And sometimes there's bumps in the roads. Anytime you do a project, you find out that the cost is far more than what you expect. And we try to do our very best to mitigate that and sometimes things are out of our control. But I want to stand up for our council and letting you know that we try to do the very best that we can for you. And it's a thrill to have you here and to hear your thoughts. And we're going to listen to it. We're going to listen to what you say. But we also need you to listen and understand and do the homework to know where we're coming from and be able to dive into the reasons we do the things that we do. Thank you.
Councilmember Brill.
I really appreciate every comment here. Some comments brought information that I hadn't considered. Many of the comments were reinforcing what many of you have said to me eyeball to eyeball. I think first and foremost, what is in front of me, and I do have a prepared statement, but before I make that, I owe you an apology. I've been on this council now for 4.5 years. The GEO bond and the information that went out on that election, in that ballot, was insufficient. It was wrong. That was unethical. I wish there was a training program that all of us that serve on a city council have to go through. Because when I got onto this council 4.5 years ago, I had quite a background in corporate workings. I traveled North America securing large contracts I have a lot of background in negotiations and a lot of legal elements, but when I think back over these last 4 years, I don't know how many of you followed the council meetings. I was often the lone voice. I did not support building a new public works complex. I thought we had too much debt at that time. I was the only council member that questioned it. The first month I was in office, the 4-person majority pushed that right through. We continue to get in more and more debt in this city, and that's not right. And there needs to be very firm guardrails put in place, revenue to debt. We can never let this happen again to our city. And now I'm going to read my prepared statement. When our city incorporated years ago, 21 years ago to be precise, and I had already lived here for 23 years at that point, it was a bit like buying an older home. Salt Lake County was the seller, and the residents and businesses of Cottonwood Heights were the buyers. As any homeowner knows, when you buy an older house, you do it knowing there are immediate fixes to make, but you also know that there is an unknown factor, inevitable things that will break down the road, requiring you to set aside money. Believing in the philosophy that if you've got to lose, don't lose the lesson, I've spent a lot of time pondering what we must learn from advancing this significant 42% tax increase. Look around Salt Lake County. We aren't like Murray, an established city that operates every facet of its own utilities and schools, library, nor are we a pure contract city like our neighbor Holiday. And unlike cities in southwestern Salt Lake County, we don't have acres of open greenfield offering a clean slate for new commercial growth. We are a mature, primarily residential community. We do not have massive revenue streams from car lots and sprawling retail corridors. In our first 20 years, taxpayers have subsidized crucial foundations, a new city hall, a public works complex, redevelopment projects like the Canyon Corporate Center and that was a new project, and the redevelopment project of the Canyon Center, which is still ongoing in the location of the old Snowbird Canyon Racquet Club. But the reality of our older home is catching up with us. We have debt, and we have aging storm drain water and sewer infrastructure. What we must learn from this truth and taxation process is that we have to take care of what we already have. We must go forward inspecting, maintaining, and saving for unforeseen things that are out of our control, but are inevitable. By accepting these factors today, we can set policies and ordinances that keep us on a better budgeting track, including hard guardrails for our revenue to debt ratios to ensure that our city home remains strong. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I am the newest one here on our council. Our city revenues come from 3 different sources. Property tax is one of them, and then we have sales tax, and then we have grants and other fees and things for the third leg. And we're fortunate in our city that those 3 are all pretty strong. There are cities that rely very heavily on sales tax, which can, in a bad time, really go down. So we're fortunate to have 3 strong legs. I want to share some numbers for us to consider. These are from 2023-24. The city budgeted 2.2 million use of the fund balance. Again, the fund balance is supposed to be for emergencies or one-time needs, but we budgeted 2.2 million in 2023-24. The actual ended up being 1.8. Why? Because the staff and our council reined it in as much as we could, but you've heard that we've had this deficit spending for 4 years. Then 2024-25, the original budget was 3.2 million into that general fund. Again, the staff and council reined it into 1.7 million. In 2025-26, this current year, the original budget was about it's 2.7 million, and it's been pulled back again to 1.5 million. But over that time period, the original budgeted use of that fund balance was 8.1 million, and then the actual use of the fund balance was 5 million. And this is not sustainable for our city to keep using that fund balance. It makes it so that there's not money for us to invest when it's appropriate and the best use for our tax dollars. So I really appreciate from hearing from each one of you. We are your neighbors. If whatever tax increase we bring on to ourselves. I have seen our staff work through this. And again, we had an 8.5 reduction in staffing in 5 months while I've been in office. And the staff has been driving this. We've gone from 94 employees to 86. We've gone from 43 police officers to 39. And so if we do not make a tax increase, we're talking about 1.7 million reduction in our police department. And I will not stand for that. I see how committed our staff is to our city. I need to share that the woman that was at our front desk for about 5 years, when she left, we didn't replace her immediately. There was no overlapping. She stayed till 11 p.m. to make sure everything was in order for 2 different nights, and she's retirement age. I just think people give a bad rap to our staff when they are so committed and have stuck with us through these years when we've been deficit spending, and I am grateful for them. I want to also remind everyone, this $20 increase, if it's 42%, if we take this $20 increase a month to your households, there is property tax relief. People need to be aware that seniors, veterans, individuals with disabilities, surviving spouses, households experiencing financial hardship, anyone in these categories can go to the Salt Lake County Treasurer website and find the way to get the property tax relief. There are programs to help us stay in our homes and survive financially. Again, this is $20 a month for the average home that this increase would be at 42%. And the last thing I want to share is that on our website, you can see the things that we have learned, our council has learned in these, as we have worked through this, that we will establish a standing citizen budget committee. We are going to limit ongoing expenses to ongoing revenue so that we don't fall into this trap again. We are going to restrict use of reserve funds and regular compensation and staffing reviews. We did one this year and found that our staff was underpaid to the market. We had a 25% loss of our staff last year, turnover in our staff. That costs us money when we have to retrain and find good people. And then we commit to improved long-term financial forecasting. So with that, I have shared my thoughts, and we'll discuss where we want to head now. And we really sincerely appreciate each one of you online and in person taking the time to be with us through this process tonight.
Well, one of the things I'd like to ask is, to take this from a 42% tax increase to a 25, I believe would require 1.45 million. And to Scott Georges, if we did actually see this 1 million decrease in the deficit, meaning that instead of 2.5 million, we had a 1.5 million budget deficit, doesn't that help make up some of our tax increase? That we could do it at 2.5 million when we were projecting 3.5 million earlier? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Not fully, say it again.
So we had budgeted a 2.7-ish million dollar deficit. but our actual was only, or is projected to be 1.5. That's a $1.2 million delta.
That's true. You have to actually budget, your budget has to land within the realm of where it needs to be, even though your actuals could be better or worse than your budget. We've seen in the past couple of years. This particular year, we did have turnover and things where we did end up being about $1 to $1.2 million better than our budget. But in the year before, that was the opposite of that. We were actually worse than our budget. So it has happened both ways, but that is a possibility.
So $1 million-ish plus 400,000 of maybe some of these things that are shoulds on our budget, which I'm going to tell you that you've called out the AV in the other room. We had council meetings in the dark. Our AV is that old where our laptops don't connect and we have council meetings in the dark. I think that's an important should. I also think there's important critical IT infrastructure. I don't want to see this city face a cyber threat with a ransom because we haven't spent money to improve our IT infrastructure. The FBI has recommended that we make these infrastructure changes without funding that, of course. And so we can choose to do that or not. I think there are probably, and I have here what that 25% increase would be, and I just want some council feedback on whether or not we could decrease this from 42% down to 25-ish, and then put some pressure on ourselves to really get the town center up and going as soon as possible, or if 42% is still the best way to go. And I'm undecided. I don't know. I'm welcome to the debate.
Well, when I voted in favor of the Hillside Plaza purchase, it was not discussed that we were not getting clear title. This came later. Two of my things that I said, and these were in closed meetings, so you weren't able to hear any of this. And I don't know, maybe you'll have to haul me out if I make this remark, but I said, look, I won't vote in favor of this, and we were looking for unanimity, and I said, I won't vote in favor of it unless there is a envisioning committee that is made up of citizens. And the other thing is, I want this to increase our walkability and be really unifying for the community. It should be for the residents. Those were two of my prime things that I wanted to see in this development of to vote in favor. And here I sit today, 3 years later, and even 2 years ago, and even probably 1 year ago, it took this turn to, it's got to be regional. We want people to get off the freeway and drive over here. So those family-owned businesses, restaurants and that went away. They probably wouldn't be able to afford the triple lease agreement. And things were very different than what was brought to me in those closed meetings. And I'm here to tell you, I'm so frustrated, and I think the people that have expressed frustration have every right to do so, and I'm not trying to drag anybody under the bus, but I have been quiet about this now for years, and I'm here to say I'm not going to do that anymore. I am going to say things in public meetings that need to be said. And so when we talk about all this revenue coming from our new city center, that's years away. That isn't tomorrow. It was never 6 months away or a year away. It was many years away. So I did not feel comfortable when the ballots came out talking about all this revenue. And I'm being blunt here, and I'll probably. Anyways, I think we have to be careful talking about all this revenue that's going to come from the city center. Sure, it will one day, but we have a lot of things that we got to get taken care of in the years ahead to avoid this problem that we find ourselves in now. So, I've tried to see this, based on what's going on with these other cities around us, but to compare ourselves with Sandy, a 95,000 population, and the kind of budget that they work with, or there's so many factors. It's very complicated, and so I think that we've worked with this. We went for the 42% because, as I can understand it, it will keep us, it will, get us in an alignment that will allow us not to have to do another 20% next year or thing. So I'm always open to collaboration. I really appreciate Councilmember Highland and our mayor and the in-depth that they've gone to try to come up with, actual factual suggestions based on things. We don't want to base things on hyperbole. Let's, audio visual to say AV when it's really matters of cybersecurity. I mean, one of the reasons I was in favor of bringing on an executive who I had identified 2 years ago as somebody who had a demonstrated ability to get us through not only the city center project, but the gravel pit, the old mill area. This person had demonstrated in his career, but, so you may say, well, why are we adding another person to the staff? But this is going to cost the city hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, if we don't have the kind of financial scrutiny going forward to really, use zoning, use all the mechanisms that are available to protect our city and all of us who pay taxes. So I just want everyone present to understand that there's a lot of information that turns into rumors if you don't have satisfactory information. And I would like to see our newsletter used to inform you of the bad news and the good news. And there's many things that we can do to get better community engagement and understanding in both the victories and the challenges that we face.
I think one of the things that I want to convey in public is Councilmember Holton and Highland. I look forward to us continuing this conversation and looking at the data and what our cost and benefits would be to a lower rate, the potential of a lower rate here as we move forward. Just so everybody knows, we operate in a place where we have to have flexibility, and that's something that is part of the character that I like to portray. I like to be pragmatic in these things. So I really look forward to that and taking a deep dive into considering things. Now, with that said, we know that, if we come with a lower rate, we're going to be back here again talking to you sooner rather than later. But we want to make sure that you understand the reasons why, if we make any changes, and also what the outcomes can be with those changes going forward. And that's something I look forward to.
I really have dived into this budget, and there are definitely one-time costs that are in the budget that wouldn't be for future years, that would keep us from having to increase. If we cut those now, we'll kick the can down the road. And one of our former mayors said that he would support this 42% if we could avoid future tax increases for a time. The mayor said that one of the things that we've done is the budget policy. So I read for my evening enjoyment budget books of surrounding cities, and they have some policies that we're missing. And it took me a couple of years, as Councilmember Burrell said, I wish I had had some more training, but it took me a couple of years to wrap my arms around this. So the 28-page memo that's on the Truth and Taxation website, at the very end, it has some new budget policies. That's just the beginning. And I will hold myself accountable, and I will hold future city councils accountable. But one example is that we will maintain a fund balance between 15 and 35%. And what does that mean to you? That means our rainy day fund shouldn't go below 15%, and it shouldn't go above 35%. Well, it went way above 35% in the pandemic, and those former councils could have chosen to do one-time expenditures instead of spending that on operations, and not led you to believe that we could operate this city at the cost we were operating it on. But also, we need to realize that going below 15% jeopardizes, if we have a stormwater blowout and we can't fix it, it's an emergency, and we don't have enough fund balance, that's a problem. Another policy is we will look at compensation. And if compensation is, way off, if we're not at least in the middle, then we'll make adjustments. There's just numerous others that I will not bore you with in reading, but it is our goal and it is our commitment, because we're facing this, that we have this long-term budget committee that will include 5-year budget projections. It will revamp our policies to hold council members, future council members, and present council members accountable to policies that are demonstrated to work. And you know what else is missing? Trend analysis. We do need ratios to show where we're moving, because there are years when we have to spend more on infrastructure. That's not apples to apples comparison from one year to another. Last, I will say that even when we're talking about $20 a month now versus $13 a month, because it's on the median price home, half people will pay less, half will pay more. So this is a progressive tax. I think there's some fairness in that, but I'm also very empathetic to how much inflationary their pressure is on all of our household budgets. I still think that that's coming from many more external pressures and not from this one line item on your city taxes. Cottonwood Heights Improvement District raised your taxes 75% last year. But you know what? That was 1/3 of the 6% increase from Canyons. Canyons is 56% of your property tax. That's where a majority of your increases has come from. So I just want to be fair. It's not the city that has caused all of this angst. We are just trying to keep up and provide services to you the best that we can and at a rate that we can continue to sustain. We cannot buy public safety and public works at yesterday's prices.
Okay, as I think about our budget, I am in favor of the 42% property tax increase, because I don't want us using our fund balance as we have, and we have identified this $800,000 of other needed costs that our city needs. There are cities that are hacked, that are held up for ransomware. We do not want to be one of those cities. We don't want to lose 25% of our staff this year. So I am willing to speak with my council members and collaborate, but my preference is to set our city straight. And I believe that $20 a month for the average home, the increase that will be seen for that average home is $28 from the school district. I love our public schools, and I'm not putting them on at fault. I'm just saying that I see this as necessary for our city, and I stand for this time that we need this for our city to get these good policies in place that I mentioned earlier that will keep us from making these choices again that were made before.
We want to move to, what do you all want to do? Happy to make a substitute motion and what everyone wants to do.
Is there appetite for something between 25 and 42%? Because every dollar that we do not give to our staff, again, that's $1.778 million out of public safety, $500,000 off of public works. These are core city services, general government, $1 million. So if we want to not do these things, is there appetite for something between 28 and 42%?
Appreciate that, Mayor. I'll just, I guess, state where I'm at. So I'm not super excited of even getting to 25%. If there is enough members on the council that want to do 25%, and we talk about all these improvements that we're going to make and all these good policies and the groups that we're going to put together, there's no reason why we can't do that within the next year. And hopefully we've made improvements. And if we come back here again and have a similar discussion, hopefully it's a different picture. That's where I'm at. If there's others that want to join, great. If I'm in the minority, that's all right as well.
It seems like there's 3 council members who want to do 42%. 3.5.
I still want to really take a look at those numbers at a lower rate. And I think it's going to take that discussion. I don't,
And we do, but don't we have to vote tonight?
Have to vote.
yeah, we have to vote.
Well, then here,
So-
I'm going to pass these down and I'm going to
Well, we
actually
look
say
at
it
that.
doesn't even have to be $1 million. I mean, because we've already cut 1.2 million, or not cut, but we've saved. And I don't even think we have to do all of these.
Councilmember, can I just clarify something? You asked Scott a question, but we still have to budget. So if we cut, and this is just for information, we'll do whatever, but if we cut $1 million out, we have to budget $1 million less. Or we have to dip into the reserve for that budget. So just keep that in mind. I just
See
want
what
to
I mean
clarify.
about learning budgeting? This is really tough. There are so many compliance rules.
Can you explain, this is our city manager, go ahead and explain, does that mean that the budget would need to be prepared tonight and we would wait to vote on that after it was prepared?
Yeah, so we'd have to make amendments to the budget that's on for tonight, and we would need a little bit of time, but I don't know. I'm going to let Scott explain a little bit because he's more knowledgeable in that area.
So when we prepared the budget, we had already projected some under expend. When we did it, we had projected our beginning fund balance to be about $4 million. It's now looking like it'll be somewhere around 4.5 million. So the net difference from how we prepared our budget to what's coming in, what in our projections about 4.5 is about $500,000. That's $1 million better than our budget, but we had already kind of pre-captured some of that in our projections that were from earlier. Pardon me, but Jared is correct. We do still have to get our budget, to match better. I guess the alternative is you could go into fund balance more. That is the discretion of council. But as you discussed, the policy that we just enacted to be between 15 and 25% fund balance, we would actually adopt this budget being at about 13% fund balance. And so we would already be below that minimum. And so we would already be throwing out or in violation of one of those policies that we have. And so we need to determine what we're going to do. Are we going to hold to these policies, or are we going to, do something different as we move forward and do that? And I know it's a multifaceted, problem that you're dealing with, but we need to decide, how that's going to go. If we chose to go to a different amount, I do think we need to adopt for sure the rate and the tax tonight. One of the problems is because of the problem with the county assessor, I don't have access to the system to be able to go and do it. So I can get pretty close, but I'm going to struggle to get where it needs to be, but I can probably get close tonight. And then we're going to have to call the state tax commission to put the numbers in because I don't have access to the system because of that error that was input into the system. And then we will have to true our budget up to that in terms of reductions and different things, if we choose to go down that road, of how we do it. If we're reducing expenditures, so throwing numbers out there by say $1 million or whatever it happens to be, we would need to determine, where that's going to be because we adopt our budget not just at the total amount.
That's a bummer.
Mayor, may I make a quick clarification?
Yes.
So you don't have to pass these ordinances tonight, but they do need to be done by September 1st. But Scott pointed out the complications with working with the Salt Lake County, but I just wanted to make that clarification.
Can you explain that a little bit more clearly?
You'll need to pass something by September 1st. You don't have to do it tonight. But what Scott said is in getting those numbers from Salt Lake County, there's complications there if you don't do it tonight.
Is there any further? We have some experts here, so we'll have Frank Nakamura help us.
Yes, that's correct. You will have to specifically say if you are going to have another meeting on this, the date and time on which you're going to move this meeting, sometime next week, maybe. So you can do that as long as you say for the record when that is. You don't have to take additional public comment. That has been done tonight, and you can make a decision. I don't know what opportunity you have then to, you'd have to fix the budget and work with the certified tax rate system if you wanted to do that.
Can I clarify, Frank, too, if we do an additional meeting, is it the same requirement from the state code that we hold just this item on that
I
meeting?
would recommend you
Okay.
only have this item.
So it'd have to be a different night than Tuesday.
So I'm just going to comment on that too. I think the state process for doing this puts us at a tight spot. We've been doing this for 8 months and you don't get that. I mean, you get public notice that we have meetings and you can attend them, but you didn't get your property tax notice and notice that until just recently. And then all of a sudden you're supposed to come here for a public hearing and it's like a movie moment where you're supposed to have this impassioned speech and we've been doing this for 8 months. And this is the number I actually did support until I got some more comment and questioned. I could support the increase because we have committed to changing our budgeting process within the confines of a very tight state truth and taxation parameters. And I want to just address it. I have to address a couple of things because it was called out. 410s has increased our productivity because it eliminated remote work. So we're doing the right thing there. The assistant city manager will pay for himself or herself because we are looking for someone who knows public financing, who will know grants so that you pay less and the grants pay more, and who will be an expert in economic development. This is not a generalist that we're looking for. We are looking for someone who's going to oversee finance and community and economic development in a way that maximizes the return on investment to you, the taxpayers. That is why we're doing or proposing what we're proposing and why we made cuts to be able to make room for that. So based on the fact that I think our hands are tied and I have to do the right thing for this city to put it in good financial order and not do another tax increase next year, and I will stand to that, you can hold me to it. If the tax dollars from Hillside come in as projected, we should do a decrease. Historically, we should do a decrease and do the right thing.
I make a motion that we pass ordinance 2026-471, adopting the final tax levy and rate pursuant to Utah Code on real and personal property within the city of Cottonwood Heights made taxable by Utah law for the period of July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And with that, I will call for the vote. I will vote yes. Councilmember Newell,
Yeah.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Highland,
Yes.
Councilmember Holton.
No.
Okay, thank you for that. And now we can move on to the second ordinance that we need to pass tonight, which is ordinance 4.2 on our agenda, ordinance 2026-472. And this ordinance adopts the fiscal year final budget for 2026-27 for our city.
I move that we pass ordinance 2026-472, adopting the final budget for the city of Cottonwood Heights for the period of 1 July 2026 through 30 June 2027 pursuant to Utah Code 10-6-118, following adoption of the final tax levy and rate and directing completion of related actions.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And I will vote yes. And Councilmember Holton?
Thank you, colleagues, for the deliberation. It's a unique thing that we had, and I appreciate the discussion and the respect. I vote no on this.
Thank you. And Councilmember Highland?
Yes.
Councilmember Newell?
Yes.
And Councilmember Burrell?
Yes.
Thank you. We sincerely appreciate everyone who is here tonight. And with that, I am ready for one final motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?